Hello everyone and welcome to another video by YPAC. Today is April 4th, 2023, but by the time you're watching this, it's probably April 5th. This is a video about the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Tonight is election night, not only in Wisconsin, but also Chicago, and we probably already have that video up on the Chicago mayoral election, and if not, make sure to come back to our channel periodically to see if that's up after this video. But we're just going to be dissecting what's been going on in Wisconsin with the Supreme Court election. So we already made a YouTube Shorts a couple months back, or probably a month back rather, when the primary took place for the Supreme Court election. If you want to learn more about the background on that, make sure you go check that out. But basically the gist of it is that a conservative justice is stepping down from the court. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is in a 2-3 majority for conservatives, and they have had this majority for 14 years now. And tonight, Judge Protasiewicz, who is a Democrat, is running against Justice Kelly, a Republican. Obviously, they don't officially register for these parties as they're supposed to be justices, and the judicial branch of the United States is not supposed to affiliate with parties, but obviously, when you look at their track records, they do align with certain parties. And honestly, it's really interesting to see these votes go up in real time. But right now, it's almost 11 p.m. EST. And I'm going to be continuing this until we have most of the results from Wisconsin, but I'm going to be checking back in probably tomorrow morning to get the full story. But right now, when 72% of the vote is in, Janet Protasiewicz has been declared the winner by the New York Times. So, this is really interesting, first of all, because only 72% of the vote is in, right? Versus the Chicago mayor election, and we already talked about this, but Brandon Johnson was declared the winner when, 90% of the vote was in. And so it's interesting how with Wisconsin, the New York Times is already declaring her as the winner. Now, I want to get into the specific districts. So, and I'm going to be comparing it to the 2020 election results and looking at how these districts flipped or changed. Overall, both this election and the Chicago mayoral election were not too publicized by the press. They seem to neglect these two elections, to the contrary of what was happening during the midterms, when vast numbers of articles and everything was constantly being thrown at political junkies like us about the midterms. There wasn't much publicity going around about the Wisconsin race and the Chicago race. And this was also reflected in our politicians. So Donald Trump, I don't think he sent out a single truth social tweet, or are they called truths? I don't know. He didn't send out any of those about this election to rally up his supporters in support of Justice Kelly, not even one. And so that's why we also saw the voter turnout in many of the Republican counties that were so in 2020 not have as much, turnout. So, as usual, we see that Madison, Milwaukee, there's Democratic voting majorities, and then the rural cities, we have mostly Republicans. And then, actually, I got asked about this earlier by a friend about why this specific district, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, but why this district in the sea of red is blue, and it's not like a major city or anything. It's because there's a Native American reserve on it. Even though they vote vast majority for Biden and for Democrats, the voter turnout in this region is really low. As you can see, 1,500 people voted in this election, versus if you go to Madison, the numbers are really different, over 300,000. And so, even when you compare it to another, Republican district, the votes in these two districts don't even compare. And again, love seeing these numbers, go up. It's really interesting. So when we look at the districts that have been called so far, that we have the votes and information from, if you go in and we look at exactly which districts we see, when we look at the overall map of Wisconsin, we see a lot more of this magenta-ish color, which signifies votes for Daniel Kelly, than we do of this mustard color for Janet Protasiewicz. And, that's again reflective of this map as well, where we see much more red. But then when you go back to this map, we see that it's more evenly split. I would say 70-30 or 60-40, versus in this map, it's 90-10. So one thing's important about this. So first of all, in 2020, Wisconsin did go to Joe Biden, and obviously that's because the density of voters in like Madison and Milwaukee far surpasses the rest of these very rural and suburban counties that just don't have as much voter turnout or even like people who live there to vote compared to like the big cities. But then when we look at this, not only does like Daniel Kelly have to get more red on the map, is the most basic way of saying this, but he also needs to, far surpass Trump, which he obviously didn't. So when we look at this like far west corner of Wisconsin, where you have Vernon County, La Crosse County, and Crawford County. If you look back here, those three districts also went to Trump. So these ones going to Janet Protasiewicz are. It's very interesting to see that flip in these counties who voted for Trump. It was still slim, but like up 5, up 8, up 13, like these districts that should be going to Republicans, not going to Republicans, especially Daniel Kelly, who's not as far right or extremist as Trump is. And then when you go back up here to like Green Bay around, again, this county that is mostly filled with Native Americans, like when you look at Portage County or, again, Outagamie County, these ones, the districts were, Portage County did go to Biden, but Outagamie County went to Trump up 10 points. So we see that like Wisconsin is trending more and more red, which I thought this was very interesting because if you've been keeping up with the channel, you see that we do election predictions very often. And most of the time, historically in our election predictions, no matter who the Republican candidate is that I'm putting in this made up battle for 2024, we usually give Wisconsin to the Republican, partly because of mostly because of the recent midterm results for 2022, and I promise not to bring the midterms up too much. I know I bring it up in every video, but the midterm results of Ron Johnson winning slimly, but still winning against Mandela Barnes. So I think that when you have an extremist Republican versus a moderate-leaning progressive Democrat, like far extremist is what Ron Johnson really is. And then you have Ron Johnson win, that speaks a lot to the state. But I guess now that we're looking at what's been going on tonight, the election with the Supreme Court for Wisconsin has produced very different results. We're not seeing voters in Wisconsin going fully for the extremist candidate. Never mind going for a moderate Republican, who's not even a Republican in the sense. We should rather be calling them liberals and conservatives. That seems to fit more with their ideologies. But it's interesting to see that Ron Johnson, an extremist, was able to win versus Dan Kelly, who's not even a, quote, Republican, wasn't able to win in this state only, say, 6 months later. So that's interesting to me, at least, first of all. And I think it also speaks to the amount of publicity that went out to the constituents of Wisconsin. Donald Trump, again, did not even rile up his supporters in Wisconsin in support of Daniel Kelly. And, Trump's got a lot of his plate with the arrangement that also happened today. Big day in politics, big day in, Manhattan, Wisconsin, Chicago, all these different cities, big things happening today. But still, he did not even try to support this race, not only because he doesn't have the time because he has so many other things to worry about, but also probably and partly because he, doesn't see the value in this election as much when it comes to broader elections or congressional, ones that dictate the type of grand laws that are going to be passed in the state versus a Supreme Court of one state that doesn't affect him nor, his constituents. And if anything, is going to get his constituents more riled up for the next election cycle for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. But he didn't seem to see the value in it. But that's not just a him problem. Overall, the media didn't cover this much. 75% of the vote in thus far. Yep. And we see, I don't think any counties have been added since we started this. I'm not sure if I'm going to be creating a, update to this. I think that this is probably enough. But if I do, then I'll see you guys then. But for now, we have Janet Protasiewicz has been declared the winner. Daniel Kelly's only hope is that with the remaining 25%, he's able to pull a over 11% lead. Just popping in here to update you all on the race. As you probably already know, Janet Protasiewicz did win the race. At this point, over 95% of the vote is in, and she is 11 points ahead of Daniel Kelly. So really, he has no chance of, well, she has won. And all the counties have been counted. So just one last look at how this map compares to the 2020 map. So really, Janet Protasiewicz really outperformed Daniel Kelly in the southwestern counties of Wisconsin. But I emphasize the counties a lot, and just to make it clear, it doesn't matter that much. It's not like electoral votes. It's still the number of votes, no matter how many counties vote for one candidate or another. I was just saying it as a reference point to see how the electorate in Wisconsin has changed thus far. So yeah, you see a lot more changes in at least this election. I feel like some of it, not to put all the eggs in one basket and say that Wisconsin is trending very liberal, but rather to say that this race may not have been because of how little it was publicized. Liberals on average, and I'm making these broad generalizations that I hate to make, but like liberals or conservatives or any other political group are a monolith, but just saying that liberals are usually more educated and up to date on races, and especially when neither liberal talking heads or conservative media outlets are really bringing this race to light, is really up to the constituents themselves to stay up to date and involved in what's going on, and probably the liberals were just more into it, or paid more attention to the race. So let's just be wary of writing off Wisconsin as a solid blue state for 2024. We still have more elections to come until then, more polls to see, but overall it does seem like, at least a little bit, that the constituents of Wisconsin are leaning more liberal. But anyways, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out our YouTube, TikTok, and everything else linked in the link tree down in the bio below. And I hope to see you guys next time.